and welcome back to the MTA podcast, where we focus on leadership, growth, and what it takes to really scale your business. Today's guest is Clive Moore, Chief Creative Officer of Agency in a Box. It's a platform agnostic software company helping development agencies eliminate infrastructure friction and build faster. Clive has over 25 years of experience in digital agencies and software development, with deep experience in AI adoption, brand strategy, and organizational change. Definitely a topic I want to learn about. He's the creator of GPT Studio, a privacy-based platform agnostic agent creation tool, and a thought leader who runs weekly AI jam sessions and publishes the Build Different newsletter. Important to note, I met Clive through our mutual coach in Dan Martell, who is an AI wizard who owns a number of AI companies. And today we're going to dig into why leadership is the real bottleneck in AI adoption. And one of my stats is why 52% of people quit their job. So Clive, thanks for being here. Welcome to the show. I'm glad we met through the Dan Martell program, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm quite excited to be here as well.
Yeah, man, this is going to be a good time. So you are based north of Toronto, one of my favorite cities in the world. I think when we did the pre-recording, I let you know that I was in Toronto from 2005, 2008, like every 6 weeks for 3 years. I had the opportunity to run a branch out of Toronto. But, talk to me about AI adoption in Canada. I'm down here in the States. Let's just start with, how is AI adoption going in, the great country of Canada and the businesses that you're working with? Let's just start there.
Well, the stat is actually kind of scary because up here in Canada, it's like 88% of businesses haven't adopted AI at any level. And so there's a significant amount of fear in the marketplace. I think there's some general distrust of the tech oligarchies, and there's this fear about it replacing your job, or it's going to take over the world, it's going to destroy the world. It's I like to equate it to fire. Yes, it can be a very destructive force if you leave it unchecked. But if you learn how to control it and harness it, you can cook some really good meals, right? That's the philosophy that I'm taking for it, because AI is not going anywhere. The people who are using it have seen definite advantages of using it, even just in minimizing the amount of busy work that they do, even if they're not really using it to its full potential yet. And so the people who are using it are seeing some definite advantages. I know personally, I alone now can basically produce the same level of content, if not better content, than I could with a 6-person digital agency.
That's what I was going to ask you, is like, how are people leveraging the technology and what is it replacing? So to your point, you're creating enough content that 6 humans could have created before. There's already one use case. It's incredible.
Right. And I get a tighter control on the quality and on the loop and keeping the voice the same. It's an easier feedback loop as well. And because the platform I've created is model agnostic, I get to use a variety of different models for their specialties, right? So just for a quick example, Claude is really good at writing things in your voice. Perplexity and Grok are really good at doing some quick research. And the GPT Image 2 is really good at creating images. And so is Nano Banana, right? And so Claude can't produce images the same quality as those other two, but if you pull all of these things together, then you've got a really powerful production platform. Now, we're not moved into creating videos just yet, but that's going to be one of the phases that we move into for sure.
Yeah. I mean, as a layperson, so, 6 months ago, Clive, I hired Dan Martell because I knew, first of all, I loved his book, Buy Back Your Time, and I knew how AI forward he was, and I wanted to become more AI forward. I wasn't afraid of AI per se. It was more like, well, how do I use it? Like, it's intimidating. It's funny hearing you talk about the different tools and what they can do differently, because as I've now learned 6 months later, I'm probably now a moderate user and you're an advanced user, but um, I'm not a builder, but I think I have a toolbox in my office right now. I'm looking at it's like a toolbox, right? It's like AI is a toolbox. There's certain tools that Nano Banana does images better than another tool does, or Claude does this better than that. And that is part of the journey for people to understand.
No, for sure. And the trick is, it is such a user-friendly interface. So the fear is the only thing that is holding most people back. They just don't know what to do. They go into ChatGPT and they do a quick little prompt, and the output isn't very good because they haven't set up the framework for it yet, right? And that was one of the things that actually attracted me to Dan Martell's group, is I did the AI CEO challenge that he offers for like, and just setting up that right structure, getting the right voice in, providing that baseline. And it's just really, it's like laying the groundwork on your house. If you got a good solid foundation, you can build 3 or 4 stories up from there, right? And that's kind of, I just took it and kind of ran with that. I too am a big fan of both the Buy Back Your Time book, and he's also co-written one with, I think it was Matt Verlack, which is Software as a Science, which is part of what used to be a SaaS Academy. So it came out of there. So, um, trying to create those platforms that give you the quick wins when you first come in. I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of the key things.
Another Canadian, peer Canadian of yours. Now he grew up, is it New Brunswick, or he grew up on the east side of Canada? Now lives in like near the Vancouver area. Isn't that right? Or where does he live nowadays? Or where is he from?
He was originally from New Brunswick, which is definitely in the Maritimes, right? Just a
Right.
little bit north of Maine there.
Yeah. Close to where I am.
Yeah, right? Very close. Very
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Also
cool.
been to your city. It's a lovely city as well. It's one of my
Yeah, no,
favorites.
Boston's great.
Sure.
So, all right. So let me take me back 20, 25 years. You're doing graphic design, branding, digital agencies. What shifted you from doing design work to, quote unquote, building infrastructure for agencies? What was that shift for you like?
Well, ultimately, I went through all of the pain points that people go through. I pretty much have all of the war wounds. So, I mean, it literally came up because I was doing design work. We got into web development, and then we started using WordPress and some other platforms and things like that. And there's an adage in the development world that if you have a WordPress website, it's not if you're going to get hacked, it's when you're going to get hacked, because in the open source there's a bunch of security things and people don't pay close attention to building when, so they install plugins, they don't notice that they stop being maintained, and there's a whole bunch of other things that go on in the background that the average SMB or even small agency was really hard for them to keep up with, right? And then we also, so I actually had a customer call me one time when I was on vacation. They were being sued by Getty Images because there was an offshore person who had basically found an exploit in one of the plugins. And so they started to publish Getty Images through the plugin. And so my client ended up getting a cease and desist letter from Getty Images because, he was literally breaking copyright laws, but he had no idea he was doing it. Right. And so I don't know the source of it, but I do know that these guys, the bad actors, as you call them, they're, as long as they disrupt your business, they win. I mean, because you all of a sudden you got to stop, you got to triage this issue, you got to spend money and time and resources on that instead of moving forward, right? So there was that particular aspect, and then I had another issue where my actual source code was sitting in a GitLab, which is like
Yep.
source code management and version control. And so what had happened is there was, again, another exploit in that. There was a little security flaw, and somebody found my instance, and then they encrypted all of my data, so I no longer had source to any of my source code for any of my projects. And so that's a pretty typical ransomware type of scenario. And so fortunately, because I'd been through the WordPress kind of instance before, I had implemented backups, a regular backup. So I was able to just basically go back to a version just before the exploit, cut that off. So I was able to regain control of my source code, because basically it's literally like 10 years of programming work, and then all of a sudden it's gone, or I got to come up with money that I don't necessarily have. Right.
Right.
And so living through these things and understanding that like the majority of the market out there is small to medium at businesses. There aren't a lot of big businesses. So
Right.
this affects a lot of different people. Right. And so I started to create platforms that were a little bit more secure. And so Agency in a Box is very much just that. We basically remove any database connections and stuff like that from your actual website. So the only thing you can get from it is what you can get from it from Google and any basic web scrape or search. You
Right.
can't get access to the data that's behind it. There's
Right.
like we've separated those components, and we have regular backups on everything. So if something does go wrong, we can pretty much restore it almost instantly.
Okay.
And so
Awesome.
building the infrastructure there is just a way to stop my bleeding,
Right.
literally.
Right. Right. No, that's great. That's awesome context. And I want to take a step back because you talked about in the opener about AI adoption and the fear that people have. You talk about data. So one of the objections I get when I talk to the naysayers, the laggards around AI is, well, Chris, once you put your stuff in AI, everybody has access to it. So tell me, is that for people? Is that true? Is that not true? Is there a way to avoid that being true? Just walk me through what you know about.
Um, well, it is not true. Not everybody gets access to it. But there are some components that you should be aware of for sure. So if you are using like a free version of ChatGPT, for example, your data is being used for training and for making the models better and for things like that. Because the old adage in marketing, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. It just is triple that as far as AI goes, right? And so there was actually a case in the States where there was a defendant was using the free version of ChatGPT to get some feedback on their case. And so when the court found out, they basically rendered the fact that that was open and admissible in court, that there was no legal protection for them. There's no client attorney privilege because they weren't using a pro level with data or security turned on.
Right. There you go.
And so, I mean, just as a human, you need to protect yourself from those things as well. And
Right. Right.
paying for the service, and you can go into the settings on any of the paid platforms, GPT and OpenAI's GPT and Claude, and you can turn off use my data for training. Now, that doesn't mean that your information isn't going there to being processed, and it is still being processed on their server. You need to either get like an enterprise license, which they delete your data after 30 days, or there is a different license that you pay more for that they don't even store your data for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so those
Awesome.
are the licenses that we use for our product, GPT Studio. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, and that's a great explanation because again, I think for people that are novices and still trying to figure this out, just how you explain that's perfect, just so they know what they're getting into. I'm a big stat and data guy. You use this in the opener. 88% of Canadian businesses have not adopted AI. What is it? Is it why? Is it industry based? Is it what is causing the friction or the laggard, I guess, take on change with adoption of AI? What are some of those components?
Some of the components are definitely the amount of hype that you see on social media about it. Even like the LinkedIn posts, you can tell they've come up with a new term for it. It's called AI slop, right? And so you can pretty much tell if somebody's generated the post just using basic AI without setting up a voice or, putting any standards around it, because it's full of emojis. It always starts with breaking or just in, all these little hooks basically they've got built in. And it doesn't sound the way that people have conversations. And so content creators in particular are afraid of, losing that voice and losing that creativity and those components and in being ultimately being to a certain degree being replaced by it. And
Right.
so they have a lot of pride in their own work. And I find like for me in particular, I wouldn't be producing the same level of content that I would be and I am now. And because I use it as a partner pretty
Yeah.
much, right?
Yeah.
So I set up my guidelines to start, so it goes off in the right direction, but
Yeah.
we still iterate. Like I still say, no, I don't like that paragraph, and I'm much more of a engaged editor.
Yeah.
Because if you do it, and I hate to say this, but if you do it with people, they
Mm.
often get offended
Yeah. Yeah.
with your feedback, right? So you
Right.
get that pushback from them,
Yeah.
and then you also have to schedule your time around their time, and so there's that bit of
Yeah.
an inconvenience in the speed to market that we're sort of have to deal with today because every small business is being squeezed from all angles. And so there is that pressure to do more faster. So it does help alleviate some of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then of course I don't know the exact stat, but even in marketing agencies, it's not very highly adopted in a lot of cases.
Wild. It
It's
blows my
crazy,
mind.
right?
It blows my mind, Clive, because to your point, 6 months ago, I mean, I have a use case in my own business. Literally yesterday, I had a full calendar. I got a lead at 8 o'clock in the morning, hot lead. I had a 30-minute window at 10 a.m., scheduled a 30-minute intake call, obviously AI note taker. The client goes, send me a proposal. I'll sign tonight. And I'm thinking in my calendar, I'm like, I have an EA, but like, I have no time to do this. I dropped the conversation to AI, my DocuSign agreement, like, hey, this is what we talked about. Whip this thing together. And within 10 minutes, Claude has this perfect branded proposal out, signed by 5 o'clock. And I'm like, that would not have happened for me 12 months ago. Like, it just would not have happened. That would have taken me an hour to put the proposal together and like all the things. So like, that's an easy example just for me as a user now adopting AI and the impact it had on my business.
Yeah, for sure. I found the same thing. I've been able to turn around a lot of proposals almost instantly because of it.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, exactly.
it
And the creative
literally would
stuff.
have taken me a week to do it
Right.
otherwise, just
Right.
because of the
Well,
other
y-
demands on my time.
right. Exactly. And so, I do executive coaching and leadership team training and in what's called instructional design. 10 years ago, when I would build out a training curriculum, instructor led training, PowerPoint, Word document, workbook, quiz, right? It would take about 10 hours for every 1 hour of training. Clive, it takes me 30 minutes for every 1 hour of training. I mean, it's literally, that level of production, which is incredible. So I'm curious on the companies. I'm going to flip the question now. So you have AI people who are resisting. Let's talk about the people that do adopt AI. What are some of the challenges you see with AI adoption? So the leader, the CEO, the president goes, okay, guys, we're going to go all in. We're going to figure this out. We're going to use some of these tools. We're going to use a vendor, whatever. How is that going right? And how has that been going wrong? Talk to me about use cases of where it goes well, and then talk to me about when it doesn't go.
Use cases where it goes well is when the CEO or management themselves are actually hands-on with AI products and projects and know how it can implement and whatever. Because there's that meme out there on the internet, and you've seen it. It's like, what do you want? We want AI. When do we want it? We want it now. What do we want it to do?
Yes. Right. I
And
have no
so
idea. Yeah.
you just can't throw it at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, if you don't have, so the big thing is, so companies that have systems and standard operating procedures and things like that already in place and have good training for onboarding and stuff like that, those are clear winners in this space, right? Because the other part is if you have chaos and you throw AI at it, you just accelerate that and amplify the chaos that's already existing, right? And so it is very much a systems first and a leader first approach. And those are the
Yeah.
ones that are winning for sure.
Good. Good. And then tell me about when it goes like completely right. So I'll give you an example, right? I don't know about you, but when I talk to clients about any type of change, and you talk about organizational change with in AI specifically, I say it's like a bottle of Advil, just like take one or two pills, don't take the whole bottle. I mean, I have a client right now that got so excited about AI 2 or 3 months ago, and they're now knee deep in it, and they're in the muck. They're like, too much, too many vendors, too many things happening. It's kind of articulating, almost supporting what you just said in some degree. But any other use cases you see where it goes wrong, or any comments on that use case I just mentioned?
No, that's actually a pretty clear example is that, yeah, if you start hopping from model to model and get on the novelty, I mean, you'll never get anywhere. It's a little bit like having a manufacturing plant and putting in new machines every week because, well, there's a new machine that came out. You actually don't get any production that way. You have to get the machine up and running, and you have to see what it's doing, and you have to tweak the lever, and, you add some oil here, and you adjust it there, and so you need to integrate it into your process in a meaningful way, um, and otherwise, yeah, because there's this one social media influencer, we'll call him that, he's called the vibe coder, and, like, every day he's putting out a post about how ChatGPT has just killed Claude with this new process, and Gemini has just killed GPT because they now do this, and, like, if you listen to him, there's literally no winning because you're popping from one place to another every day, and you have it's like trying to learn 12 musical instruments at the same time. There's just there's no possibility for success,
Right. That's
right?
a good way to put it. I love how you just said that. That's great. Well, your ideal client profile and my ideal client profile, quote unquote, are pretty similar, the 5, 10, $20 million plus type companies. Talk to me about bottlenecks. One of the things I see, Clive, and I want to know your perspective on this, is that I typically work with founders, owners, entrepreneurs that grow their business to a certain place, 5, 8, 10, 12, 18 million, whatever. And they're making all the decisions. They're involved in everything, all the things. What do the bottlenecks look like for you in your practice, with AI, et cetera? Just tell me about bottlenecks you see with the leaders that you work
Um, God, I mean, there's the whole Peter principle thing. So that is a real existence out there where people just sort of get to the leadership position and they don't really know what to do next, and they ultimately sort of try to manage and maintain control because they're a little bit afraid that if they offload control to their operator or to their CFO or something like that, that they'll no longer be relevant. But that's not really the truth. And that is kind of it, is they want to maintain that control. It is a little bit of a fear state again, right? Um, and yeah, it's hard for some of us to get out of our own way. There's no doubt about it. I mean, that's just a real human thing. We all want to feel um, needed and wanted, and we like to feel relevant in the organizations that we've built. And yeah, I do find that is a large portion of it, is just
Yeah.
people just
There's,
not
I'm
wanting
sure you're
to
familiar with the
offload.
book. It's the number one book on Audible, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And something I talk to all of the leaders I work with about is like, start with the end in mind is one of the 7 habits. And I say, picture a day 5 years from now where you're bored. And they look at me like, what? I go, you've hired the right people. You have the right systems in place. Everything runs itself. You come into work at 9 and by 10 you're bored. And then they look at like their head's going to explode. Like, Chris, it's never going to happen. I'm like, oh, no, it can happen. It should happen. Like, that's the whole idea. Like, the whole idea is you shouldn't be needed. You should, like, I get the human piece of I want to be needed and wanted, but the goal for you, especially for people that want to exit a company. I mean, a lot of people I work with want to grow, scale, exit. And an exit could be a sale. It could be, I want to hand it off to my children. It could be anything, right? I want to hand it off to my business partner. But when I come at them with that phrase, it's just funny how they can't even envision it at first. And I'm like, no, like that's the whole point. Like the whole point is you shouldn't actually be doing the work anymore. Like you built the company to 10 million. What got you to 10 doesn't get you to 50. And so you being involved in everything doesn't get you there, right? So there was a great book. It was actually Marshall Goldsmith. I don't know if you know, it was actually a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's about emotional intelligence, but it's the same concept in business. So
For sure it is. For sure it is, right? And so that's why it's important to continue to invest in yourself and join things like the Dan Martell coaching group, because it does help you with that mindset and mind shift. And yeah, ultimately that is the point, is I guess as a creator of a business, you feel a little bit like it's your child and you've raised it so far. But the job of any parent isn't to always be needed by their child. It's to make their children self-sufficient to go out into the world and do their own thing. And so, yeah, I'm also a big fan of the begin with the end in mind concept, right? And so, isn't it better to be loved and wanted by your family than by your business, and to be able to spend time where it actually really matters, right?
absolutely.
Because you can't take it with you. And so, those relationships that you have in life are probably the most important things at the end, because as they say, you never regret the the job that you went to, you just regret the time that you didn't spend with loved ones. I mean, that's kind of how that works typically. Yeah.
That's a really good comparison, actually. I love that comparison. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. Talk to me about AI jam sessions. When someone's stuck, is it I don't understand the tool, or my leader won't let me try this tool, or like, talk to me about these jam sessions that you referenced in our intro.
So it's a local lodge. Well, it's through what they call a regional innovation center called the Sandbox in Barrie. So it's a group of entrepreneurs, largely from all different walks. Like um, we've got EOS implementers there. We've got old retired firemen and right, and we got a variety of different people. We got like a janitor and whatnot, and so they have that trepidation that most people have. It's like, I don't know what to do with the tool. I don't know what it can do for me. So we literally just do live demonstrations of certain workflows and just expose them to the tools and how easy it is to get certain outputs out of them without a lot of structure, and to not be afraid, right? As Dan says in the groups, it's like stop pretending not to know. If you don't know how to do something, ask the AI. If I don't know how to connect it to my calendar, don't stand there frozen. Ask the AI how to connect it to your calendar. It will walk you through, right? So, and initially, I think a lot of the hype was about becoming a prompt engineer, right? There was a lot of talk about that. But today's AI models, that's the worst thing you can do, is to pigeonhole them into a role that is, largely arbitrary.
Right.
And again, we'll go back to Stephen Covey on this one. You begin with the end in mind. You tell them what the output is that you want. You say, okay, well, I'm trying to build this plan for this, and then let it help you through the steps to get there.
Right.
Um, because it is a pretty large database of all human knowledge at the point, right? And to a certain extent, if it likes to go to the median, right? So if you don't know what you're asking for or what your end goals are, it's going to give you some pretty mediocre output, right?
Right.
But if you have a clear vision of where it is that you want to go with it, then it can very much help you articulate that vision, much like a business coach even
Yeah.
can.
It's funny, and again, this isn't a Dan Martell commercial. It's just that he's helped us so much, and you're so forward in this, and I've become much more forward than I was 6 months ago. Like, the things you're referencing are some of the things I learned. So to your point, when I joined the program, it was very ChatGPT heavy, custom GPT, create your own voice, and create prompts in a certain way. That was 6 months ago. In the last 2 or 3 months, that's flipped to completely what you just said, which is like, no, don't over prompt it. Like, actually start with the end in mind and say, hey, here's what I want to get to. Ask me a few questions before you give me an answer, right? And I also love Dan's content because he's shifted hard from ChatGPT to Claude, which I have as well, and I'm sure you have too, and Manus and other tools. But like, ChatGPT is the greatest cheerleader in the world. Oh my God, Chris, you're so amazing. That's such an amazing idea. And now I use Claude. I'm like, in the custom settings, like you talked about, like getting tactical for people that listen to the show. Like, my big thing, Clive, like you, is take a high level strategy. How can I apply it today? So what we're talking about is how you can apply it today. Go into your settings in Claude. Go into your settings in ChatGPT if that's your preferred tool, and put in your preferences and how you like to speak, and don't be a cheerleader and push back on me and ask me 3 questions before you give me an answer, like all that stuff. Like, 6 months ago, I knew none of this, and this is just scratching the surface now, but it's helped me immensely.
For sure. So just ChatGPT in particular is an engagement platform, so it likes to keep you engaged in the conversation, and it is very much a cheerleader. You might even call it a sycophant because it literally says all your ideas are great. And that was one of the first things I did. Was I set up those instructions, was challenge me, challenge my ideas. Don't automatically agree with me. Make me think through some of these processes. And I'll tell you, sometimes my agent, he insults me. It's like, it's my, no, it's not quite what I meant. I'm not an idiot.
I love when Claude does that. Claude's like, Chris, you're
Right.
not thinking about this the right way. I'm like, I'm not. It's like, it's great. But it's a thought partner, and it's a thought partner that has a lot of intelligence behind it that, really can help improve outcomes for you. All right. So Clive, we talked, I have a bunch of questions for you, but I'm going to go off script, which I do occasionally. I mean, the show is Make the Adjustment podcast. I'm making an adjustment. Dan does this great thing with social media where he puts the bubbles up of the tools, and you did a little bit at the beginning of the show. I'm going to give you use cases for clients I see, probably the same stuff you see. And I'm curious, I want you, if you were talking to the customer right now and they could pick one tool for that use case, we're going to see what you say. Is that cool? Have some fun?
Sure.
Okay,
Let's give it
cool.
a shot.
All right. So the first use case is going to be, Chris, I want to create a social media marketing campaign and a bunch of ideas. What tool would be good for that?
Um, Claude is definitely good at that one as well. Yeah.
Claude's
Yeah.
good at a lot of them. You're probably going to say Claude at a lot of these. I
I'm
want
probably,
to create a microsite as a landing page for a call to action for a social media campaign I've created. The call to actions, click coach and it goes to a website. What's the best tool for that, do you think?
I'm going to say Gemini is probably the best one for that.
Very
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Because
And
Google
you said,
has
and,
all of
and
that
then
data.
this is, I think you already know that because you said this one earlier, but I want to create a professional image or a new headshot for my social media and for whatever. What would be good for images?
So I 3 weeks ago, I would have said Nano Banana, but this week I'm going to say GPT Image 2.
Very cool. I
It's
didn't even know
leapfrog.
that. GBT image too. Didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay. Very cool.
it's fairly new. It came out with GPT 5.5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, mine was, I gave you proposals. Like I did proposals last week on Claude. It was pretty good. Is there any other answer other than Claude? If you had to create a proposal for a customer, what are good tools to use?
So I would either to generate the content and format the proposal, I would use Claude because it has excellent Word document skills built into it now. You can actually, it also integrates with Excel
Okay.
for, yeah,
Okay,
so
cool. I didn't even know
plugged
if I
into.
knew that. Cool. Okay. And then last one, I could do speed round with you all day. Last speed round would be, I am a creative agency and I want to learn something new. So I don't have a training department, and I just want to learn something new about a process or something. Like, what would be a good tool for learning about a process or something you don't fully understand?
Uh, Notebook LLM is good for that one for sure. Yeah.
Notebook
So you
LM.
basically upload the documents or what have you and point it and it'll create decks around it and all kinds of teaching materials.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm learning too. This is fun. I mean, these are my typical use cases from the clients I talk to. So like I'm talking to them right now, and you're helping them. So that's amazing. Anything we haven't talked about today? Because I want to be sensitive to time too. We have a few more minutes, no rush. But anything we haven't talked about today, and I want to talk about your agency too. Just like tell customers, if you have said problem, walk me through your ideal client. Walk me through what said problem looks like and what you solve for there. Let's start there.
So because of the platform that I created from the agency space, if you are looking to produce more content that's on brand and on voice, if you're a 5 to $25 million company, you've got, five or more employees. If you want to maximize their output, then that's kind of my sweet spot for sure. So off of the back end of Workalo, I have basically agentic processes that run. So I have one agent that's trained on SEO, for example. So I'll send her out to do some SEO research based on some keywords for a blog. I then have that passed off to one that is specialized in writing content with your voice. And then, of course, I have another graphic designer who currently is using the GPT-2 to create images or also has access to stock photography because that's one of the APIs we're connected to. So it can go research images related to the content of the blog. And then we can publish it directly to WordPress, or we can create a markdown or an HTML file for you to put it into whatever platform you want. And then at the end of that workflow, it then spits it off into a social media manager who will then cut it up and create multiple slices of content for any of your social media channels. So again, you as the content creator, there's approval gates there, so you get to, approve and review the content, but it goes off and pretty much does the entire workflow literally in like 10 minutes if you just let it run through. You have your WordPress blog that is SEO keyword rich and
Hmm.
researched in that,
Hmm.
published with your meta tags. And then you also have your social media posts supporting that particular blog ready to go, like literally in 15 minutes. And this week I'm building carousel. So if you had a look at my Instagram this week, that's the first proof of pudding of building a carousel directly with the agentic workflow.
And while we're on it, what is your Instagram handle? So people have it.
So I'm Clive Moore, 1979, which is I did that largely because I have the original Clive Moore on
Yeah.
Instagram,
Yeah.
but I've lost access to it about a decade ago. I can't recover it because in the meta world, there's no humans involved. You're caught in this loop, and if you don't have access to the email that was originally
Right.
set up with it, then you're done.
It's like
So
Bitcoin. Yeah.
it is. It's much like that. Your wallet's gone. So I've created the new one in reference to a band, Death from Above 1979, because they had to call themselves that because there was another Death from Above. So
Gotcha. Very cool. Makes sense. And then your clients, is it any industry, any country? Just walk me through, where do you work and, what are some of the typical countries you work with?
so primarily I've been largely in North America. So I have some customers. I got one customer out in California, and then mostly mostly in Canada still. Um, But then again, we're just getting these products launched, and so there's no geographical borders, to be
Yeah, great.
honest,
No, that's
not with
awesome.
technology.
Yeah. No, I learned it's so funny. Like when I had the opportunity to work in Canada, being from the US, it was just so funny. I'll talk to you about this is now 20 years ago. I'm going to date myself, Clive, but here I am, like an American, 35 years old, coming up to Canada to work. And I'm in Toronto. It's a very modern city. Everybody speaks English. It's great. And I'm going on these like sales calls with customers. And within 10 seconds, they're like, oh, you're American. And I'm like, yeah, but I look like you guys. I don't really, you can figure that out that fast. I was like, they figured this out pretty quick. But what I learned was the market, just the market cap was, I thought it was bigger than it was. Like I was told that Canada has about 10% of the market of the US, right? So if the US has, 100 widgets, Canada has 10. And I was like, wow. I was like, I thought Canada was bigger, but it's just really concentrated in the major cities of Calgary and Edmonton and Vancouver and Toronto, et
Oh,
cetera, So,
that's it. We have a lot of vacant geography up here.
yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, yeah, you live north of Toronto, which I mean, the further you go north, Lakes Country, it's gorgeous. I mean, it's beautiful up there, but very cool. But I asked you this question before. Anything that we missed, anything we wanted to talk about, anything you want to leave the listeners with before we close today's show?
I think it was a pretty good chat. I can't think of anything specifically. Um, no, I can't think of anything specifically.
Awesome. Good. Okay. So other than Clive Moore, 1979 on Instagram, any other social handles, websites that people should know about?
Well, I'm most active on LinkedIn, to be truthful, and you can just find me as LinkedIn/in/Clive Moore. And my parent company, agencyinabox.ca,
Perfect.
and
Awesome.
it
Great.
has links to all of my products.
Beautiful. Yeah, Clive. I mean, listen, awesome conversation. I mean, again, lots of clips will come out of this. I learned a lot, and I know that your ICP, my ICP, is very, very similar. So if people are resisting AI and they want to have a conversation, guys, Clive is available for a call. He will hopefully talk you off the ledge and get you more comfortable because it is the future. I mean, Elon Musk said it, Clive. I have a mentor in my life that is a very successful gentleman, Joe Matarese. He wrote the forward of my book. He's bought and sold companies, very successful guy, sits on boards. 18 months ago, is Chris, you got to get in this AI train. And then 12 months went by and he goes, how's the AI going? I'm like, yeah, Joe, I'm still trying to figure it out. He goes, Chris, you better figure it out. And then I saw the Elon Musk podcast with Joe Rogan. When Elon Musk said, and this was in 2025, he said, if you do not adopt AI in the next 2 to 3 years, you'll be out of business by 2030. And that's literally all I had to hear. I'm like, all right, I got to figure this out. And so if this show did anything today, gang, it's, talking to people like Clive that are very early adopters and innovators in this space. You are definitely missing out. There's so much productivity that comes from these AI tools and things that Clive can do. So you're crazy just not to open your mind and quote unquote make the adjustment and open your mind to using tools like this. But Clive, this is a really interesting conversation. I'm glad we met. I'm sure I have clients I can refer to you at some point because they're going to be stuck in some of the holes you get people out of. So I'm glad we had the opportunity to talk today.
And although it is a little bit cliche, you've heard this before, but AI will not replace you, but someone using AI will, 100%. There's no doubt about that.
And that is a great way to close the show. And that's a great clip. So Clive Moore, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you
And
for having
we'll see you again really soon. Thanks, sir.
for sure.